Hey, shalom, shalom. David Sparkworth here for our final drill. Are you ready for our final drill? I'm talking about drill number 8, which is called reading downhill or progressive reading speeds, and then giving a basic translation. Rather excited because this represents a huge accomplishment for those that have tracked with me throughout the Yarash digital subscription, all of the lessons. And we're getting to a point now where we've come to the end of our drills, and it's no longer necessary for me to be showing you video after video, applying a certain drill to a particular pasuk in the Torah. We're going to be graduating here, and the next segment, which is the final segment of this course, has to do with Jewish hermeneutics, taking one verse at a time, translating it, and giving the plain sense of the meaning contextually, paying particular attention to grammar, binyanim, shades of meaning, especially focusing on anything that would be apparent from the Hebrew text that may not necessarily come out in the English translation. And so I'm rather excited by that. So we'll be focusing on Genesis 12, verse 12, and there will be one lesson for every pasuk, every verse, all the way to verse 20. And that will be the official end of the course. Let's go ahead and jump into it. For this lesson, you want to print out your practice verse. We'll be using that for the basic translation portion of this lesson. You may want to take some notes or actually transcribe some of the translational data that I'll be throwing out there for you. I'm going to begin by reading the pasuk, read it through 3 times. I know you're fully familiar with the drill and the routine. I encourage you, if you've not had the opportunity or not taken the time to acquire the Tanakh Read Along app, that would be down in point 3. That would be for iPhone and iPad only. I am not sure if it is available for Android. And finally, you want to carefully focus as I translate the Hebrew text into English, being sure to take notes on anything that you learn. Perhaps questions may arise that you're just not sure about, something that you might want to ask me in the future. Okay, let's try our first time reading through, nice and slow. Vayhi ka'asher hikriv. Pause. Levo mitzrayma. Pause. Vayomer el Sarai. Ishto. Pause. Hine na yadati. Pause. Ki isha yafat mare. At. Okay, take a deep breath. I'm going to try this through a little bit faster now. Vayhi ka'asher hikriv. Pause. Levo mitzrayma. Pause. Vayomer el Sarai. Ishto. Pause. Hinena yadati. Pause. Ki isha yafat mereh. At. Sof pasuk. Sof pasuk is the two things that look like a large colon at the end of the verse. Sof meaning end, pasuk meaning verse or sentence, end of verse. That's what those two, I know in this font, they look more like diamonds than they do. Most fonts, they look like a large colon, just circles. Here, run through this one final time. I will not be using the annotation tool. We'll be going too fast. Should be read, Vayhi ka'asher hikriv, levo mitzrayma, vayomer el Sarai ishto, hinene yadati, ki isha yafat mere'at. That's Genesis 12, verse 11. So let's jump on down to the second part of our assignment. I'll have the opportunity to download the answer key, or you could just use the answer key right off your screen. I actually encourage you, after watching this assignment, to put away all the materials and see if you can translate this yourself and to see how well you do. If you get 10%, 40%, 60%, 80%, or 100%. That is one of the best things you can be doing as a newer Hebrew student, is testing your translational skills, especially now that you've learned all of the drills, you've had a chance to try the drills out numerous times. I'm sure you'll have some drills that will be favorites of yours, as I do, and some that you don't care for as much, like the parsing assignment, right? So I'd like you to do that and just see how you do, and then you can compare it with the answer key and pay particular attention to the things that you got wrong and try to determine why you got them wrong, how to make them right, and bridge the gap between any logical disconnects that may exist. Let's begin at the beginning of the pasuk. So the word vayhi, you should recognize the prefixed vav with a patach. See that a lot in Hebrew. That simply means and. The root of the word is haya. It's the Hebrew verb to be. And so with the prefixed yud before the hey, it means he will be or it will be. When you add the prefixed vav, which is standing in the position of what is called a vav conversive or vav consecutive, it reverses the tenses. So this is translated and it was or and it came to pass, reference to a series of continual actions which take place in the biblical narrative, linking one action to another. The next word is ka'asher, very common relative pronoun, asher. And sometimes we see the kaf affixed onto the front end, and this simply means when. And I realize asher can mean which, whom, who, number of other things. In this context, it means when. And I've found in my own studies that the fact that it has a preposition attached, this preposition can mean like, as, among some other things. It doesn't necessarily always carry forth in terms of the preposition having a role to play in the ultimate translation. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not. So in this case, ultimately, it's the translator that must decide what they're going to be translating the Hebrew into which English words. And so I've chosen the word when. It came to pass when he kriv, he drew near. I've drawn your attention to this Hebrew verb before in some of the other drills. The root of the word is karav, and that is a Hebrew verb which means to draw near to something. It's used a lot in the tabernacle with priests that are drawing near to sacrifice. We see this word transliterated actually coming out in the Gospels in some English translations. Yeshua talks about like korban, someone attributing a certain sacrifice or calling it korban. And that has to do with a particular offering that would be offered that would be brought near, handed to the priest, to the Kohen at the temple. And they would take it from there and perform the required sacrifices. So hikriv is a hifil binyan. We know it's a hifil because there are two distinguishing characteristics. There is a yud sandwiched between the second and third radical, the resh and the vet. There is a prefix te with a hirik. So he feel, you can hear the vowels being represented, E and E, he feel, and that's causative, but it doesn't always carry over into English 100% of the time. Many times it does. In this case, it doesn't really. This could have easily been put in the call, the simple form, and it would have been translated he drew near. It happens to be in the he feel. It is also translated he drew near because it would not make a whole lot of sense to translate it as he caused to draw near. And continuing on, we're presented with what is called an infinitive in the next word, lavo. Could mean to come, to go. We know Avram's on his way to Egypt, so he is coming to Egypt, coming towards Egypt. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on infinitives. That'd be something that would be covered that's a little bit deeper beyond the purview of this course that you'd get in the first year grammar of biblical Hebrew. But just to say, when infinitive has that prefix lamed, you're going to translate the root of the word, which is bo, meaning come, and the lamed is the prefix lamed, meaning to. It's a preposition, and it's to come, to come. And you would not typically see pronouns attached to an infinitive. And you'll see a lot of infinitives in biblical Hebrew, and that's connected with the next word. So he drew near to come to Egypt or towards Egypt, and we have the hay of direction here with the kametz hay at the end, and that is a directional hay indicating the direction that Avram is heading in. So he is going to or towards Mitzrayim, Egypt. And also want to draw your attention to the atnak, which is the symbol, Masoretic diacritical symbol, which indicates a break If we broke this entire pasuk into two major thoughts, as Rich is saying, we want you to break here. This separates the two major thoughts that are set forth in this pasuk. Okay, next line. Vayomer, perhaps the most popular Hebrew verb form in the Hebrew Bible. We'll see it a bazillion times. Vayomer, from the root amar, to say. This verb also has a vav conversive, a vav meaning and, which corresponds with this English here. The prefix yod meaning he will. Of course, the vav conversive changes the tenses. It goes from he will to and he said, past tense or completed action. And he said, El Sarai. El is a standalone preposition, not to be confused with El, the word for God. El means to or into generally. So Avram spoke to Sarai, his wife. And the next word, Ishto, means his wife. Isha is the Hebrew word for wife. And so how you'd say the wife of him, you'd say Ishto. That's a genitival relationship, a possessive. So you have a possessive pronoun here on the end, the cholam malay, meaning his, or we could say wife of him. Sounds better in English to say his wife. Whenever you have that genitival relationship with a Hebrew noun that ends in hey, the root ends in hey, the hey will drop off and it will be replaced with a tav. So notice it's not ish, o. That would be two vowel sounds in a row. It is ish to. Very common occurrence to have the hey drop out in a case like this and be replaced with a tav. All right. Hinena. Hine means to behold, or is an indicator of sudden action, something abrupt that's come onto the storyline. Hinena, na means please. So this could be translated, look now, please, behold now. He's trying to arrest her attention. Hinena. Hineni means behold me. Or we could say, here I am. See that in the book of Isaiah. Isaiah is called to the ministry. The heavenly voice asks the question, who will go for us? Who will be sent? Who will go for us? And he responds, I want to go for you, Lord. Hineni, here I am. Send me. Okay, line 3. In the final line, we have the Hebrew verb yadati. Yadati. Yada, yud, dalet, ein would be the root of this word, and it happens to have a first person suffix on the end. First person common singular suffix, I should say. So this particular suffix, pronominal suffix, there's no gender attached to the suffix itself. The T, taf, hirik, yod, context would tell us that it is masculine because it refers to Avram. Yada is to know, yadati. I knew. Contextually, because it's an ongoing conversation he's having with Sarai, it'd be appropriate to translate it in the present. I know. So what does he know? Ki isha yafat mira'at. Ki, that, or we could also translate it as for, even as. I know that isha, so we have the Hebrew noun for woman, and that corresponds with this word right here, ishto, his wife. So you can see right there, change the color of my marker. You can see right here the point I was making, like this word isha has a hey on it, but when you attach it to a possessive suffix, which represents ownership, the hey drops off and the tav replaces it, ishto. All right, finally, yafat mera. So I know that a woman, it's going to tell us more about this woman, yafat mera, literally beautiful of appearance. Yafa, yod, fe, hey, means to be beautiful. So same thing happens here. The hey drops off because it's genitival, it's possessive. Hebrew would call it a construct. It's part of a construct chain. So the hey drops off, the taf replaces it. Yafat. So it's not just beautiful now. Once we replace the hey with the taf, it becomes beautiful of mara, appearance. So mara is just the Hebrew word for appearance, someone's visage, how they look, how they appear to others. We do see the root word, resh aleph hey, which is the Hebrew verb to see, which shows you, further reinforces the fact that this being a verbally empowered language, the verb is pretty much everything. Everything's based on that. We get the noun by adding a prefix mem to the verbal root resh aleph hay, and in adding a prefix mem, it's no longer a verb, it becomes a noun. You see that in many, many instances where a verb will become a noun by simply sticking a mem, prefixing a mem onto it. Mareh, beautiful of appearance. Then we have to insert, you'll see this word are. This is a verbless clause, they call it in Hebrew. So there's no verb really that's represented. Now, they could have put the Hebrew verb like to be, but more times than not, they do not. The writer does not do that. They leave that out. And so it's known as a verbless clause. And then at is an independent personal pronoun. I know we just covered that in our last lesson. It's the last pronoun chart I showed all of you. We looked at every single instance of an independent personal pronouns. This is a pronoun that is not attached to a noun, not attached to a verb. It stands on its own feet, all alone, in between words, or in this case, at the end of the pasuk. So ata would be you, masculine singular. This would be the female counterpart, at, meaning you, a reference to Sarai. So there you have it. That's our translation. And so this is a little precursor as we move into our next segment called Mining the Pashat. Pashat is the plain, simple meaning of a text from the Hebrew. As we start our final segment of the course, you're going to be getting a lot of what I've done here. So I will be paying attention to grammar, I'll be translating, I'll be pulling meaning out of the text that otherwise you probably wouldn't have known is there, that may not necessarily be evident in the English translations, and you're going to learn just why you're studying Hebrew. You'll be refreshed and reminded in a huge way, oh yeah, David, that's why I'm putting all this work in, because it's worth it. And you can get so much more meaning out of the text by taking the time to learn classical Hebrew. I hope these drills have come in handy. And just because we're done with our drills, there really is no reason for you to completely abandon them. As long as you are part of the subscription product, you'll have access to every one of these lessons. So I would encourage you, if you're foggy on anything while we're working on mining the pashat section of the course, feel free to go all the way back to the 16 essential drills, or to see how I've applied some of these drills to a particular pasuk in Genesis chapter 12, and take as much advantage of it as you possibly can. It's a resource. It's a great resource, and it is there to help you. It will only help you, though, if you take the time to actually look it up. So I'd encourage you, don't be shy, don't be lazy. Spend the time, push yourself, go the extra mile, and you will reap abundant rewards. It will all be worth it. So signing off here from the Galut, the diaspora, Ani David, Laila Tov, Lahitraot, Shalom, Shalom. We'll see you soon.